And of course, the first question is, why is it important to plan out the semester? Why can't you just wing it? And there are many reasons why you don't want to wing it. I would say one of the biggest ones is that Tau to Pi chapters have to deal with something that almost no other engineering organization has to do, and that is we have an initiation process that we have to deal with. So a typical chapter will have an initiation process that looks something like this. It might be a little bit different for your school. A key aspect of this and why it has to be planned out is that multiple steps require planning out further steps. So for example, when you send out the letter of eligibility, typically by that point, you already need to know when your info sessions are going to be. The initiation tasks typically have to be planned out in advance because there's often some kind of event, maybe community service, maybe polishing the bench, something like that. The election is required to take place 2 weeks before, at least 2 weeks before the initiation ceremony. So you can't hold your election until you know around when your initiation ceremony is going to take place, and so on. So by definition, because you have to do this process every semester or twice a year or whatever for your school, you already do have to plan out the semester. And on top of this, really, a lot of other aspects of the semester might revolve around the initiation process. So for example, if you want to do image boosters, like things that will improve your image on campus, you typically want them to happen before the letter or around the time the letter of eligibility is sent out. And you typically, especially if you're a smaller chapter, you don't want to hold your initiation ceremony the same day you have a really large event, because those are both can be very time taxing and a lot of effort required for those. So anyway, this is one major reason, in my opinion, that it is important to plan out the semester, but there's others. When you plan out the semester, it really helps a lot further down the line when you start to get really busy. Because if you already have figured out kind of what events you want to run and stuff like that across the semester, you can easily adjust that schedule if need be. You can cut things out if you need to. You can add new things if you want to. But otherwise, if you're constantly having to think ahead and think like, okay, what should we do now? What should we do now? It really clogs up and it takes a lot more effort that way. It also helps with delegation. So if you know pretty much, if you have at least a rough outline of all the events you want across the semester, then it's really easy to delegate to your officers because you can just have them pick the events that they want to run. And it also can reduce workload for the spring. So if you have the fall semester, for example, fully planned out and it goes swimmingly, then in the spring semester, you can probably just duplicate a lot of the events and things that you did. And the officers will already have a good idea of how to do them and why they're important to do and how to do them and stuff like that. It also can increase your capacity to do more. Typically, if you take things one at a time, you're going to get bogged down in that workload, like I said. And so planning out in advance, you'll find ways to add in things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And then finally, it actually helps the image of Tau to Pi to our members and also to initiates. And it also, if you're the president, it helps you look good to your officers. It shows that you're very organized and you have a clear idea of what you want to do. And that can be very helpful.
I come from a medium-ish, large-ish size chapter. And one of the things that we always do in the beginning of the semester is a calendar planning. And so this is like a 4-hour event with lunch where we get all the officers together and involved with our calendar. And everyone comes with ideas and about what events we're going to do and whatnot. And then they will present their ideas. We will decide on a narrowed down list of what we're going to do that semester, and then throw it up on a calendar and see how it looks and have it all planned out. And that's the same calendar that we give to our candidates right when they start doing all of the info sessions and whatnot. And so that allows them to see how we've planned out the semester and plan to be at the events accordingly.
I also come from like a medium large chapter at Arizona Alpha. The way we also used a calendar, but instead of doing a big officer meeting, it was pretty much I sat down with the calendar and picked out important initiation related dates, like when our initiation would be and when we're going to send out the letters, etc. Things that Alan touched on earlier. And then I put them on a Google Calendar, which I made like the Tau Beta Pi officer Google Calendar, and you can share that with your officers. and it'll appear on their calendar. And then we made a separate Tau Beta Pi public calendar that we would put on our website so that members could see what events are coming up.
I would start with a few small events planning around initiation. I come from DC Gamma, which is a smallish chapter, maybe about 50 or so students when I was an undergraduate. I would tend to delegate a lot of tasks out among the board and make sure that everyone had some responsibilities that got us going, centered around initiation, planning a few small events, and then just steamrolling from there.
Just the biggest thing is starting at least sketching out the calendar in advance is really, really important. And at least for me, what I would do is before I started working on the calendar stuff, I would first start with just a Google Doc, and we would just like myself and each of the officers would just throw up ideas for events that we might want to do across the semester. And then we'd slowly whittle them down into the ones that we really wanted to do. And then we'd splash them on the calendar.
The thing that I'll bring up is goals. So if you have goals for your chapter, or if you want to accomplish something this semester, whether that's just getting back to having in-person events, or maybe you want to get t-shirts, other goals like that, it really helps to plan those out now and define them, because once you get rolling into the semester, like, other things are going to come up and you're going to have other priorities.
Don't try to do everything alone. Tasks can seem daunting, so delegation is a key word here. And then the other thing I'll say is on the Tau Beta Pi website, there's some pretty good schedules. There's a model 10-week, 12-week schedule on how to lay out the semester. So I think binding yourself, or keeping to some rhythm, some periodicity of like holding yourself accountable to a certain structure is a good thing to get started as the semester gets underway.
It's actually a really good idea to get your officers involved in the planning process as early as possible. This is like twofold, because it lets you explain to them and work with them to come up with the calendar, so they know exactly what's happening when. They can tell that to the candidates. Whatever like that process will look like, they have a better understanding of what's actually happening and won't be clueless. Start as early as possible. It never hurts to plan. One of the big things that we have at my chapter is we plan out the calendar, but then we make sure that we put in, like, what if there is a chance that something might end up getting canceled, you want to make sure that you don't just flat out cancel it, you replace it with something, because since we put out the calendar so far out in advance in the beginning of the semester, we have a feeling that people will be planning on being there at that event, and so you don't want to knock that off the table for them if that's the one thing they're going to make it to. So we always try to replace a canceled event with a different, easier event, something that doesn't, if say for example the officer team that's supposed to run it flakes, something that somebody else can run that's low risk, easy to do sort of thing. We always have a backup there because we don't want to just wipe it off the table in case somebody planned on being there for that time slot.
For your officer meetings, use meeting agendas. They're extremely useful. It saves a lot of time and frustration because it will make sure that you have a clear idea of exactly what needs to be discussed and what needs to be figured out at an officer meeting, and you won't kind of just sit there socializing for a long time without actually solving things out, which happens far more often than it should. So keep your meetings productive, make an agenda in advance, share it in advance so that the officers know what to expect, and then stick to it during the meeting.
I'm not sure if the right mindset is to think about this in terms of the number of events you should be holding. It's whatever feels right for you and your chapter. However many you think you can undertake with the proper brainstorming and planning that we're talking about. So the chapter I advise now is Columbia University in New York City, and a very eclectic landscape to say the least. And it's kind of hard for them to get to hold certain events with all that's going on in New York City and surrounding areas. So something I preach to them is to try to get 2 events other than initiation, let's say, but not to hold them to those 2 events, to just, that should be their goal at the beginning of the semester. And if they don't reach that goal, then you could have another brainstorming session, figure out what to do in the following semester or what information to pass on to the next group of officers to maybe do something better. So I don't really think there's like a hard-coded, threshold or floor or ceiling. It's just whatever feels right, whatever you think you can do with the time you're given.
Ours is on the other end of the spectrum, just so you get the wide range. We do anywhere from, well, when we were online, we were doing like 60 events a semester. And then in person, we did around 30. I think it matters. It's based completely on your officer group and like your capacity, like Scott was saying. One thing that we put in place as like a standard like baseline rule is we want to have a minimum of 2 officers at each event. So they're the ones running it. And so when you divide it out that way, you take a look at time constraints. You don't want somebody having 2 or 3 events in the same week. So we plan it out based on that. And we just estimate that this is a good, we'll target a number and then we'll do the math and make sure that it's okay for not too much work for everybody. And we try to target each officer running around 3 to 5 events. So again, like your capacity is, base it off of that. Our officer group is ginormous. We have like 25 plus officers. So that's easy for us to do. But if you have a smaller group, you might want to target smaller first and then see where you can go.
On your point of general monthly meetings, I really liked our chapter's regularly scheduled meetings. We had it every other week. And it gives people a chance to see the same people on repeat. So you really get to know people better, I think, than having randomly scattered events. So that's just something to think about.
In terms of planning out the semester with a few people, there is actually a pro to that in that you have less people to wrangle. And so it makes planning a lot easier because there are less cooks in the kitchen. And so take that to your advantage and get a group together, think about what you guys want to do. Even if it's just like a couple like events that semester, that quarter, that's a lot, that's fine. Whatever you guys can manage, there's no set rule for a reason. So it's up to you to kind of manage that and play it to your advantage. So feel free to meet up with the team you do have and knock something out.
However many officers you currently have, go ahead and figure out what the however many of you would like to do. Like find events that you would want to do anyway that would be fun for you. Make that plan, and then you can actually use that plan as incentive for someone to join, like to become an officer. You can go to your friend and try to peer pressure them into it and just be like, hey, we already have the plan. We just need help executing, and it'll be a lot easier that way.
So in terms of, I have 2. Every semester we do a engineering barbecue, and that's something that our chapter puts together as sort of an image boosting event. We invite everyone in the College of Engineering. It's a big deal. Everyone comes out, faculty, students, whatever. And we try to advertise that as widely as possible. And that's really successful, and we get lots of people there, 40 very easily. And so that's one good one. In addition, I guess like on a more professional side, our professional panel is very well attended historically. We usually invite some key speakers, so we'll do about 5 panelists, and we try to keep all different types of engineering involved. So we'll try to get 1 civil, 1 mechanical, 1 aerospace, so on and so forth, and try to mix it up, and a few guys, a couple girls, that sort of thing. And then these are all professionals in the industry and preferably Tau Bates. So that's also a really well attended event on our part. It takes a little bit more planning because you have to contact people. But it's definitely a good one, and it pulls in a lot of folks.
I'll say 2 of our top 2 events. The first one was coffee and donuts. So we just had this some morning from maybe like 9 to 11 or so, or maybe even noon. So it was drop in, so people didn't feel obligated to stay the whole time and they could work around their classes. And coffee and donuts was like fairly cheap, no more than $50, I think, maybe cheaper than that. So that one was really good. And a lot of people showed up because free food and no time obligation, and they just hang out and chill. And then the other one, that isn't really one single event, but I think our every other week general meetings were really good. We got really good attendance. At each meeting, we'd try to have a speaker. So we'd give short updates about what's going on in the chapter, and then the rest of the time for a speaker, which is anything from a professor to an alumni to someone in industry, other things like that. But that one was regular, so people knew when to show up, and there was free pizza, so it was also drew people in that way.
For me, a big one was actually basically what Annie mentioned. Spend like 50, $80 on coffee, set up a table right outside one of the biggest engineering buildings. And that's just an amazing way to advertise your chapter. You will get a lot of people talking to you, and it is a really good way to advertise it, especially if you're on a small campus. But I just wanted to go over a few take-home messages. One is, yes, you do need to plan out the semester. It is so much better to draft and revise rather than wing it. Sometimes as you want to start right now planning out the big events or the big goals that you want for this semester. If there's something specific that you want to accomplish this semester, plan those out now. It's also really important to get all your other officers involved, and make sure you're managing your officer team and delegating responsibilities appropriately so that it's not just all on one person, because it never should be. And last thing, meeting agendas are your friends. Make sure to use them appropriately.